All right. This will be a detailed explanation of the United States Constitution, not the original Articles of Confederation that only lasted for 7 years, but the United States Federal Constitution that we have used ever since. There are 7 articles, and there have been 27 amendments added since that time. And I'm going to go through it piece by piece. By the end of this, you should have a pretty good understanding of the powers that are laid out in the Constitution and the freedoms that are guaranteed to the American people. Let's start from the beginning. Article 1. Article 1 lays out the structure and the legitimate powers of our law-making branch, the United States Congress. Starting with the structure, Congress would be bicameral, that is, they would have 2 chambers. The upper chamber is the U.S. Senate, and the lower chamber is the House of Representatives. The Senate will have 2 senators per state. As we currently have 50 states, we have 100 senators. When the Constitution was written, the senators were chosen by state legislatures, and that's how we chose our senators for over a century. These senators were appointed by the state legislatures. There were no term limits. We now elect them for 6-year terms, and I'll explain that later. But the smaller states liked the Senate because if they had a very low population, they still had 2 senators. If you have a very large population, 2 senators. California, for example, has the largest population in the U.S., but they only get 2 senators. Some people think that's unfair to California, but you have to keep in mind that this is a federal system, and there are certain rights granted to the states. The House of Representatives is the lower chamber, and representation there, it's still allocated to the states, but it's based on population size. California, last I checked, had 53 representatives because they have the largest population. There are some states with populations so small, such as the state of Wyoming, that they only have 1 representative for the entire state, but they still have 2 senators. So larger states are well represented in the House, but not as well in the Senate, and that was designed to protect certain rights of smaller states. Congress writes the laws according to Article 1, and that's very important to remember. Because when you hear people talk these days, you think the president writes the laws, but he does not. President Obama does not write laws. He needs Congress to write them. The same was true of President Bush and every president before them. Congress, according to the Constitution, must pass these laws with a simple majority in both chambers. In the House of Representatives, it really is that simple. Currently there are 435 members of the House, and if all of them vote, and keep in mind they don't all have to vote, but if they all vote, that would mean that 218 or more must vote yes. If by chance there is a tie in the House, the bill fails because a tie is not a majority. In the Senate, however, because there are 2 senators per state, the framers predicted there would be many ties. So in order to break those ties, we have the Vice President of the United States who presides over the Senate. He votes only if there is a tie in the Senate, and he breaks the tie. Under President George W. Bush, we had a divided Senate, 50 Republicans, 50 Democrats, and because they were so fiercely partisan, Vice President Dick Cheney had to break many ties, probably more than any vice president in history. Now, the most important part of Article 1 is Article 1, Section 8, because this lays out the kinds of laws Congress can pass. I'm going to highlight certain points of this. It starts with giving Congress the power to collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises to provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Let me explain what that means. The word taxes is kind of vague. There are all kinds of taxes. You might think that income taxes would be the taxes. Those are the kind we commonly pay these days. However, there were no income taxes in the original system we had. Abraham Lincoln was the first president actually to suggest such a thing and to